welcome back to the Kings and I podcast. Right now, there's only one king and only one I. So, and
At least you're not talking to yourself in this one. So.
that's true. At least I'm not talking to myself, which will not last very long. But today we want to talk about raising men, right? Because we live in a very feminized society, and it does matter. I think it matters. It doesn't matter in just like men care about manly things. I think it really matters in terms of the Lord wants women to be raised, girls to be raised into women, and boys to be raised into men. We are different, so I think these are righteous things that the Lord wants for each gender, and he wants them to have what they need.
Yep.
But when people talk about have what they need, they usually think about like, what does a child say they need, rather than taking the initiative and realizing as the parent, this is what they need, right? They're a boy, so they need some rough and tumble. They need some tension, right? You listen to them, how they communicate, but like you are gearing them, right? You're molding them, shaping them into the person that the man you want them to be.
Absolutely, and it's not just like there's purposes to being a woman being raised to a woman or a girl to a woman and a boy to a man, because there's roles that are filled when those things happen, and not just the societal role that people cry about today, but the God-given roles of for a man, protect, provide, preside, that kind of stuff, and a woman typically nurtures and grows the children, like what I mean, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not just a boy becomes a man. It's like there's reasons that a boy needs to become a man and a girl needs to become a woman. So
that's how we create strong societies, right? And strong individuals, right? Like there's a lot we could say about what we could think that what makes a good woman, but we're men. Let's talk about what makes a good man. And you had come up with a list of different items. I don't know if you want to pull that up on your phone. Let's go through each one of them.
yeah,
And I'm especially excited.
not just me, we came up with a list.
What? But I am very excited though for us to get to that article or that section from that book from your wife. So when we get to that, I'll share the screen and we'll take a look at that. But let's go ahead and let's talk about these pants.
All right, so raising men, we've got a few different things here. Okay, so we'll start right off the top. Raising young men to be like Captain Moroni, Helaman, and the Stripling Warriors. Right? Obviously, we like Captain Moroni around here.
I mean, you might be picking up on something, maybe. But
there might be a theme that runs through most of our shows here. But
there's a reason. There's a bona fide reason. And so, okay, why do we say Captain Moroni, Helaman, Etienne? Like, what traits do they have? We feel like our boys need to have to be men.
So, I always think of that perfect understanding, and that refers more to, I think, the gospel and plan of salvation, scriptures, the application of faith in their lives, and how it fills their roles as men, manly men, which some might call toxic, but but it's just they're examples of a righteous man. They can be a true gentle man, but they know how to be forceful when it's needed, and forceful in righteous ways, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, and kind of what we wrote here, right? They are physical specimens. They made themselves a force to be reckoned with, right? And not every boy is realistically going to have a physical specimen, like some sort of physical stature that can be a force to reckon with. However, these men put everything on the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
regardless. I think that even if Captain Moroni wasn't some like really awesome ripped dude that he probably was, I think knowing his character, he still would have put everything on the line for his country. I think of John Adams. John Adams is a really great example of this. That
Mm-hmm.
dude was small, was very annoying to people, right? But he was a man, and he risked it all. He risked his, well, just like all the founding fathers, right? He
Yeah.
risked his life, his fortune, his sacred honor
Right.
to create America, and like so. That you make yourself a force to be reckoned with, and I think what that really means is you are willing to put your commitment where your values are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably definitely a better explanation than what I was trying to say. But so men of character and men of spirituality and men of physicality. So maybe that's
Yes.
the three things we could try to
Well,
think
well,
of.
well, Stripling Warriors is in there as well, right? And these were young boys who, yeah, they were known for their physical activity. That's what Stripling is talking about, but they weren't trained, right? They
Or at
weren't
least very, very new to being trained anyways, but they weren't scared of it.
they weren't trained in war, right?
Yeah, not yet anyways. Or they were very um they were probably pretty
No,
new to the training.
yeah, very
They
novice,
were
right?
pretty
But
young, so.
they said, they're gonna go and risk their life, right? They're gonna
Mhm.
put their everything where their values are and value their freedom.
Yeah. So here's a question for you then. These young men, these stripling warriors, since we're going to talk about boys becoming men, these stripling warriors, who were their examples? Because most of them didn't have fathers. So
Oh
who
yeah,
were there? Where were they learning this masculinity from?
from their toxic moms.
What? No.
Well, that's actually a super valid point. I didn't even think about that. They're learning this from their moms. Their moms weren't feminizing them. They weren't like, no, no, Tommy, put down the stick. We don't pretend those are swords.
No, you're exactly right, and I'm sure obviously there were men in that society, right? Because these were the anti-Nephi Lehi's, or are these the Nephi? I always get them mixed up.
Anti-Nephi Lehi's.
Yeah, right. So their fathers or grandfathers had been the ones to ditch the weapons and buried them, right, and made the covenant that we're not going to fight
It
anymore.
was it, it was actually their fathers. It was
That's right.
direct.
Yeah, it was their fathers.
Yeah, their fathers.
So
Not dads couldn't go, and also like a lot of their dads were killed, and any of
mhm,
the dads left were like, I made a covenant, and Helaman said,
yeah.
don't.
So I do wonder though if they were still helping them train a little bit, before they ended up with Helaman and some of the Nephites. I would imagine so. They're probably like, it's not like they were just like, nope, we're not going to even talk about war or anything like that. I would imagine they were still, patriotic and teaching their sons about this is what you do for your country, right? Generally speaking.
Yeah,
And then their mothers were supportive, were, they weren't battling their husbands, if there was a husband there. But I think the mothers realized, like, in order to grow as men, you need to have good manly examples, good male examples. And I don't know how long Helaman was around before he became their leader. I don't think it was very long, but they must have bonded very quickly. Uh, and I think that probably stemmed from realizing, hey, Helaman is a righteous man, the kind of righteousness that our mothers taught us about. You
yeah.
know what I mean? And
Well,
so
is
they
there?
were able to kind of latch onto that and be like, all right, like, we can't, there's no way we can, or we should doubt Helaman because, where he's coming from with at least righteousness.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Going back to the raising men, we want them to be like these men that we've mentioned. Um,
Hmm.
Half of this whole equation is that they're righteous, right? They are righteous enough. So their situation, they were basically immigrants, right? Because the Nephites said, "Okay, you're getting killed. we agreed to let you come in here. So it wasn't, some illegal immigration, illegal alien situation, but they
Hmm.
were brought in and said, and the Nephites said, "We'll protect you."
Yep.
And they knew in their hearts, seeing that, like it says, that they saw their brethren struggling by the sword for them, and that's why the dads were almost like, I can't stand by and see people die for me. I have to support, you know.
Yeah.
And so they had to send their sons. The example set by their moms and their dads, that
Hmm.
they were like, righteous people don't let other people just go and die for them. If you can do something about it. And
Yeah.
or sorry, I say that not unfortunately, but like the hardest thing they had to endure was the fact that now they had to go send their sons instead of them to
Yeah.
fulfill all that they felt was the righteous thing to do, right? They could have just been like, all right, Helaman said we can't do this. Oh, it eats me up inside, but oh well, let's just keep
Yeah.
making
Right.
peace. They said, no, I will send my sons. And
Well, they understood the obligation of being part of Nephite society and culture, like,
yeah,
and the whole. I'll quote JFK here, right? But ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, right? Like these guys realized that and understood, like, hey, we've been given the opportunity to live free. We need to give that back and try to at least preserve that freedom, right?
so what's interesting is, as we were talking about this, about giving back, and how these parents sent their kids to go fight, which would have been a really hard thing to do. You've probably heard there are many World War II stories where these men are like, my parents were immigrants from this one country, and
Oh
like, I
yeah.
think, I forget his name, but he was Italian. He went into Germany, I believe. But his when World War II happened, his dad sat him down and he said, "We came here with nothing. We built everything. This country cannot fail." And he sent like all 5 or 6 of his sons to war. He's just like,
Yeah, World War One's the same way, like because you had the really big, end of the 19th century immigration, and a lot of them were. I don't remember if there was the whole taking the test kind of thing. I mean, I know you still take tests today to become legal citizen of the country, but there was like this really huge thing about taking a test to become a citizen at the beginning of the 20th century, before World War One happened, and so like right World War One, those guys that were like I took a test to become a citizen, I fought for my country. They were passing that on to their sons, right when World War Two finally came around. So
yeah,
you're exactly right. Like there's yeah.
people had a sense of duty, and that's the other thing is, if you want to raise a man, teach him duty, and
Yep.
duty to God, duty to family, and duty to country. And it needs to be in that order. But sometimes you have to recognize that your duty to country is how you serve your duty to your family, right?
Mhm.
And the reason why I put it in that order, because usually it's God, country, family, is because America isn't where it ought to be anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So my mind was thinking about the country, right? Duty, uh, God, country, family, like you were saying. I don't know of too many other countries where their founding documents are described to be as divine documents,
Yeah,
right? Like where
divine
the
fire.
founding fathers were all about the divinity of the country, of the freedoms that we are supposed to have here. Um, and so, and I think that's why you have such a history of like duty and fervor to that duty in the history of the United States, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that have been like, our country needs us, this and that across time and history, and that's great. But America, I believe, anyways, is set different because it's just people have come from all over the world and been like, I love the United States. I'm gonna fight and die for the United States. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I don't know of too many other, and I'm sure there are, but I don't know.
the enthusiasm is not quite as high. I can't even say enthusiasm. The commitment is, because there. I mean, still today, even though I have a lot of gripes about the way the government is hurting people, um, America is still a fantastic place. It really is a land
Oh
of freedom
yeah.
and opportunity, right?
Why
And
else,
God,
why else would we have 10 million people crossing the border in the first like 3 or 4 months of this year?
yeah, yeah. And so then raising a man, you want them to learn duty and how to fulfill duty. And I think duty first begins with giving them responsibilities, right? Because it's
Hmm.
like, hey, as part of the way you are going to help support our family, you're going to clean the dog poop in the yard because really it's something simple, right? Give them
Yeah.
responsibilities, and it's not that you see. I think it's important that you don't just give kids chores to learn responsibility and how to be responsible. You want them to show that it is a duty to their family that they owe to the family to do it. Because
Right. Yeah. Like my kids are always asking, "Hey, can I get some money from whatever doing some like chores and stuff?" Like, no, this is part of being a functioning member of our family. Like,
yes,
this is just the normal stuff that you're supposed to do.
yeah,
Like this isn't a money making scheme. Like you don't get an allowance. You can go to our neighbor's yard because he's always offering to pay them for like cleaning out all the branches that fall down or and they'll throw it in the wood chipper, like stuff like that. Like yeah, like go work at the neighbor's house. Go
yeah,
do service for them. If they want to pay you, that's great, but sometimes you just do service. But like yeah, like you're not making money from doing your laundry and folding your laundry. Like that's your normal duty and obligation as a family member.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Like my kids will a lot of times be like, they'll complain. They'll say, "Why do we have to clean the bathroom again?" or this or that again. And I'll tell them like, because that's what we do as a family. If we want our family to have cleanliness and like just list off a couple things like then we are all here to help each other. We all have to do our part, and that's duty, right? That is
Yeah.
duty.
Well, and
And
you've got some livestock running around.
I do.
So like that's awesome, man. I wish I had some of that stuff. So like some chickens or they should get some goats to so I don't have to have a lawnmower. But get some goats. You can chew up the yard. But yeah, like that's awesome, man. Like I think of the old school stuff where it's like, yeah, caring for the livestock was just normal. There's nothing special about it.
That's right. And let's talk about obstacles real fast then. What are the obstacles? Because I feel like we hit a number of actually really really dang good points about how to faithful sons. And if we weren't crunched for time, because I have a phone call at 11, I have to be at. Yeah, I just heard those listening. We're doing this in the morning this time, so we're not deadbeat.
Woohoo!
But
Yeah.
I, there's so much more I would love to say there, and I feel like we could dive so deeply.
Yeah. Well,
These
then
things.
let's end with the thought of so as part of raising these men, um, looking for a quality woman, right? And not one that shares the feministic traits that you do as a man today, right? We'll talk about that in obstacles probably, but teaching a man to find a good woman, right? The
Yeah.
stripling warriors again, right? Amazing mothers, and I'm assuming they had sisters. The stripling warriors had
Oh
sisters
yeah.
and stuff too, right? And so just they saw what a strong feminine, not strong masculine mother, a strong feminine mother, what that looks like. You know what I mean? And they were filling their kind of like divine roles as nurturers and mothers, and that their half of guiding these men, these boys to become men.
Yeah.
So finding someone like that is probably what you want.
Yeah. I think you're right. You want someone who can complement you and someone who will help you achieve the outcomes you know that are right. Right. I mean,
Hmm.
duty to family, duty to country, duty to God. Well, one of the duties we have to God is to raise a righteous posterity. We are like there is a reason why you are supposed to marry in the covenant, like that you are supposed to, um, because you have a duty to God. to raise people, to rear children in the covenant, because to do it any other way is to short their blessings, right? Because
Mm,
there's nothing greater than having the fullness of the gospel and temple covenants that
yeah.
well. And so if you have that ability to give that to your children, but instead you choose for something else, like you got to be careful. I know people who marry non-members, and they have their reasons and stuff, and some people go that route because they've done their best to try to find a member to marry, and just kind of give up for whatever reason. And I and I've and we have had we have relatives who have married non-members and converted them, or dated a non-member and converted them. Right?
Mm,
There's people we know that have done that, um, and that those turn out. But ultimately, you want, as duty to God, you want to become a father, a husband and a father under the covenant.
mm-hmm. Oh, definitely, yeah.
So let's jump to obstacles then. So I love these obstacles. First one off the bat, man. You want to read that?
Electronic devices. I guess we should shut this off then if we're. Sorry, guys, we're done. No more episodes for us. It's over.
Well, we know that if you people are wasting your lives on YouTube watching this stuff, you might as well be watching quality crap like our crap.
I know, right? If you're gonna sit on the toilet avoiding work, at least watch our stuff. So, oh, man.
But
So yeah, so electronic devices. I would definitely say TV shows and probably video games and social media would probably be my top three in all of those. Oh, was that a white supremacist sign? Sorry. Uh, so those are probably my top three things because, um, dude, TV shows and video games were probably my biggest captures over the last, not so much now, but just back when I was younger in the military, right? Deployments and stuff. Like, dude, we just binge. Like, you want to talk about binge watching? Go on a deployment, and you're just in your downtime, man. Like, I remember watching, dude, I don't know, like almost the entire show, not just the season, like the entire show of Friends in about a week. Yeah, dude, I totally binged all because I never really watched it, and
yeah,
I was in Iraq, and I was like, dude, I got nothing going on, and we were. This was like between our patrols and stuff like that we were always doing. But like, yeah, I'd watch like 3 or 4 episodes in a row and just like downtime and like pass out, whatever. And then came the video games where it was just like, oh my gosh, it was crazy. And so now it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do that anymore. Number one, because I'm getting old and I can't stay up late like that anymore
yeah,
without it like just destroying me the next day. You know, you kind of see the bad going as years of staying up late. But so we kind of talked about this before, but like with video games, like if you're making your living with video games, like more power to you. That's whatever, man. But like everything else, just all things in moderation, right? Like set your time. Like this is your block of work. Yeah, I think most people actually do this. The ones that actually do video games for a living or whatever, like they actually set up, their work day. They're not playing all throughout the nighttime. They're not.
yeah. Well, for them it's a job, right? So it's actually not really pleasurable like it is for the avid user.
Yeah, right. So like the recreational person will say like for me, right? I'm done with work at 5 o'clock. I come home, and then it's like, oh, okay, I put the kids to bed at 8 o'clock, and they're not truly down until about 9 o'clock. So it's like, oh, I'll play a game at 9 o'clock. I play for like maybe a couple hours. It's like, dang, now it's 11 o'clock. Well, there goes my sleep schedule. Like now my next day is gonna be garbage, and so like I can't do that anymore, and I don't do that anymore. Uh, TV shows, it's all crap now, anyways. There's nothing good anymore. Um, there's literally shows. I think I've said this before on here, but like, there's a show called it's either like Satan or Lucifer or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
how many crime shows are there where it's kind of like, hey, I could maybe get away with. I think there was one show called How to Get Away with Murder, And like just stuff like that. It's why would you want to watch this stuff?
Yeah,
And
that's
there's a billion streaming services out there. Oh man. And there's probably good stuff on all of them, but it's just like you can't watch all of it. But people are trying to watch all of it. And it's just not it's no bueno, man. No bueno.
well, so like these are obstacles because of
Mm-hmm.
it, the time suck. But it also, right, like when it becomes a time suck, and you can become addicted. Addictions are not good.
Mm-hmm.
When your brain is so tied into it, it's hard to function, do other things, especially teenagers, right? They
Mm-hmm.
Human beings in general, teenagers is a good example, but adults as well, in all ages, become
Yeah.
super irritable from watching, from being glued to a device. It's like the irritation
Yeah.
quickly. Why? Because your brain goes from kind of being sucked all in somewhere, and then you're trying to get pulled out of that, and you're like, and then it kind of makes you cranky. You go, oh, I don't like this. Just thinking about it made me tired about my brain getting out of something.
There you go.
Well,
You
and
stay stayed up too late watching TV, huh?
you say moderation in all things, and I agree with that. I will say, you also have to decide um, based off of your personality, their personalities, like your family culture, and also kind of what happens throughout the day, like what you need to get done. If you're very like for example, my family, we're very busy. Um, we got a bunch of stinking kids. We've got a bunch of stinking sports to go to. Right, we got all this stuff to do,
Oh yeah.
and it's like we don't have time for shows and video games. So
Mm-hmm.
we try to keep it very limited on shows, and also my wife and I, we decided we don't want video games in our house at all. Like the kids,
Yeah.
they'll get the chance to play video games, and they do every time they visit a cousin or in-laws and stuff. But it's just like, but in our house, there will be no video games because I've never met a single parent who got video games for their kids who did not regret it. Like parents who actually care about their children. I've met parents who, who were like got their kids, but they also don't care about their kids. They just want their kids to stay out of their hair because they just want to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those aren't good parents. I'm talking about the good parents who care about their children and their children's outcomes. And I've never seen a single parent who actually cares about the child who did not regret getting them video games. It just
Hmm.
because even if you try to limit the time, it still becomes this fight because it's like, can I play it? Can I play it? Can I
Oh
play it?
yeah.
Play
Yeah.
it? It makes you go insane, right? So yeah, like
Yeah.
those devices can prevent you from giving them. The reason why, when you think about time suck and stuff and raising children, you only have a certain amount of time to raise them. Every day you get the same 24 hours. Every week, every month, and activities come and go. That takes away time from you. Eventually, they become adults, and they are, excuse me, no longer with you. Your
Mm-hmm.
time, especially as they grow up, becomes more and more limited. And if you're trying to raise them to be men, your boys to be men, then you better maximize the time with them. And if your time,
Yeah.
if you are now scooping more out of your limited time bucket to give them video games and TV shows, man, you're missing out on teaching them something that will bless them their entire life. I would rather take my kids
Yeah.
camping than go
Yeah.
watch a Disney movie. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
let's go do something manly. Let me show you how to light a fire.
Yeah,
And
no, dude, you're totally right. Like, especially as the kids are getting older, it's kind of like, man, like we can't just raise them to become man children, a man child. Like, don't you guys know how to do anything at all?
okay, so then let's talk about over medication.
Okay, yep. All right, so electronic devices, moderation, and go do manly things instead of watching other people do manly things. All right, over medication, yeah. So I wish I had the actual percentages of this, but it's just a known fact right now that our youth and young adults are over medicated, overdiagnosed, and just, well, a lot of it stems from these social devices, social media, and electronic devices. Right? They're ignoring the basic face to face connections, face to face conversations, and reading emotions and all that kind of stuff. And so naturally, that would, uh, you know, manifest itself in loneliness. And Alex is gone again, but I'll just keep talking anyway.
I'm here. Just keep going.
We'll just put a picture of you up there or something.
This is the worst. Sorry, you were saying what?
Well, just that. So the heavy use of electronic devices and the lack of actual social interaction is manifesting itself in loneliness, depression, uh, even anxiety because people don't know how to act around each other anymore. And so, right, what's that going to bring on? Medication, right? The pharmaceutical business is insane, and just like doctors prescribe everything for anyone. It's crazy, man.
I agree, and that's the thing. Is like if you if you are constantly looking for a problem, right? Like, oh, my child struggles in this way, and you're always trying to find like some sort of diagnosis, some sort of like, oh, it's got to be this. All right, what I was gonna say is if you're always trying to add uh always trying to come up with a condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you're creating is a um, crutch for someone's life. All right. I'm just gonna do it this way because uh
Keep freezing.
yeah, I keep freezing, so screw this.
Satan's trying
Apparently.
messing with technology.
What I was gonna say is I had a friend growing up, and he was constantly diagnosed by his mom and dad. They constantly took him to something, and it became this game where eventually he got attention and love. Well, he thought it was like the only form of love he thought he could find
Yeah.
by constantly getting medicated or constantly being diagnosed, because that was his form of attention, but also became his way of getting what he wanted. So he would purposely act worse because he knew
Uh,
that they would be like, oh, he just can't handle this. But then around me, he was perfectly normal. And if
hmm.
he and if he tried acting weird and dumb, I'd be like, "Shut up, you're stupid." And then he'd like, "Oh, I can't pull this crap around my friend." And so he was so normal around me, but I saw him, make himself
Huh.
mentally ill or act mentally ill
Yeah.
around other people. And so in his case, it was a game, but eventually it took over his entire life. It was no longer a game, and now he is emotionally handicapped, and they
Dang.
don't know what to do with him. Nowadays,
Mhm.
you have kids who they are given every excuse under the sun to not succeed, and not to be a go-getter, not to go out and do, not to leave the nest.
Yeah.
And I think that's a tragedy.
Well, and also, I think that another great tragedy about all of this is, and the hypocrisy of it too, because I saw this when I lived in New York, and I still hear about it from people that we know in New York. But it was just in the school systems. It's so this is where I'm getting at the hypocrisy stuff. But the left, right? They want you to act a certain way, while they
Sure.
claim everyone should just be themselves, right?
I
And
don't know
so
what you're
there's yeah, I don't know, but so not too long ago, this last maybe year or so, we had a friend up in New York, and their son, very quiet, he's just a quiet boy, but he's a freaking genius, and the school system was like, well, he's not participating in our little group activities and this and that in the classroom, and he's not always talking, so they're like something must be wrong with him. That's what the teachers were saying.
You serious?
Yeah, man. And the parents were like, no, he's fine. He goes hunting with his parents, and this kid's got to be 8, maybe 7, 8. I don't remember their ages, but I mean they're young. They're less than 10, 10 at the most, but I think they're less than 10. And they're like, oh, I think we should send him to a counselor. And this is
Oh
the school system
no.
saying this. I think we should send him to a counselor. And they basically no, they did. They threatened to use child protective services if the parents didn't send him to a counselor.
You serious?
Yeah, man. And so, and this woman's a good friend with my wife, and so like she would call my wife and be like, I don't know what to do, and all this kind of stuff. So me, I'm just like, tell them to shove it. Like they have no right to say anything to you about your child.
Yeah.
Okay, they informed you what he does or doesn't do in the classroom. Does he have a problem learning? Are his grades suffering? No, he's kind of the smartest in the class. Then what's the problem?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They're
What
trying
is
to
the
shove him into this box of medication and counseling. And so I told my wife to tell this woman that if you start sending him to counseling, you're telling him that something is wrong with him, right? Just because he's quiet and sick to himself. I'm quiet and sick to myself. I find social engagement exhausting, right? But over time, I've learned to just be social, like I have to be, because I'm a human being and an adult. you
Yeah.
know? So like a kid will eventually break through however they need to break through. But you can't push it, you can't rush it. And this is one of the reasons why I left New York, because the school systems pull this kind of crap.
Dude, that's so sad that they would do that.
Yeah, man. I
It's
mean,
so sad.
thankfully they were able to find a counselor that's like a church counselor. The mother was like, if we have to do counseling because the state is mandating it, um, we're doing our own counselor through the church.
Oh
So,
yeah. Good
but
on
still,
them.
just the fact that they had to go through that because their kid is quiet, but he's a genius.
Dude, it's insane to me that they have so much power that they can intimidate you like that. They can kind of just be like,
Yeah,
you know what? We'll take away your child if you don't do what we say.
right.
That's
But
insane to me.
I thought we were all supposed to live according to how we wanted when we were part of the liberal left, right?
Well, once they think that you're being abusive or neglectful of your parental duties.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, okay, I'll stop because I have a lot I can say about this. I've been
Dude, we
through
should let's
that.
go over the new Title IX rules because they changed all that stuff, and that
Oh
opens up a whole slew of uh, parental rights being taken away.
yeah, that'd actually be really. We should do that, dude. We should do that in another episode. I would
Yeah.
love for us to do that.
So
Really,
over medication.
yeah, over
Over
medication.
medication.
So let's jump to one more. Well, let's quickly read through these, and we'll hit on only one in detail, and then let's get to the book, and then we'll need to end here pretty quickly. But so let's look at or sorry, let me read through them, and I want you to decide which one you want to read over. But we wrote down safe playgrounds.
Quote air quote safe playground.
That's right, safe playgrounds, and then you have split homes. Whether it's the removal of the father or the
Nope.
mother, it makes it really hard to raise a son that has what he needs. Childhood obesity, so
Yeah.
not giving your kids the sort of food and exercise, the activity that they need to be, physically, healthy and responsible for
Mhm.
their bodies. Decrease in religious fervor, that really decreases manliness because
Yeah, it does.
I like we obviously come from the LDS lens. We have religious lens here. That's the whole point of this podcast. And real manliness cannot be defined without godliness.
Yeah.
And you can't have godliness without religious fervor.
Mhm.
Increase of religious softballing. So the teddy bear Jesus, which, oh my gosh, it drives me insane.
Jesus is
Anyway,
a socialist, okay?
he loves you always, and you are perfect as you are. Sorry, half of
Even
those,
in your sin. Like, well, yes,
half
he
of,
still loves you no matter what you're doing, but he's not going to be happy with what you're doing. So,
yeah, he wants you to change, right? He wants you
yeah.
to improve, like straighten out and fly right. And that's like,
Hmm.
I we're not. I'm not better than Jesus Christ, and I'm still willing to tell my kids that they're doing wrong and they need to knock it off. Right?
Hmm.
It's like, hey, don't fight with each other. Let's get along. You know, not quite, but
Hey, Jesus flipped tables and used the whip a couple times. Just saying.
that's true. But yeah, but you still, um, he corrected people. I think people
Yes.
forget that Jesus
Yes.
legitimately was correcting people, right? And being like, hey, like
Yeah.
what you're doing is not okay. Knock it off. Anyways, let's go into the book section we wanted to share here was from your wife's book, right? About the safe playgrounds, isn't that right?
Yeah, kind of the safe playgrounds and all this kind of stuff. So it's a book called Barefoot and Balanced. Um, I gotta find it now. So, hey, there you go. But so just to point out some of the stuff on here, right? So the data is kind of old at this point,
It's
but
still
I would
probably
venture to guess that it's only gotten worse, right? Um, the bottom of that first paragraph, or just that first paragraph in general,
it says
Department of Education, which I think should be uh, gotten rid of. But anyway, along with like 75% of other government organizations that are here to help us. Um, but right, that number of 5-year-olds receiving what's known as related services,
okay. So
like occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, whether it's mandated or not, kind of like what I was just talking about that kid back in New York, right? They're seen as having some kind of disability, or whether it's learning or social, whatever the heck. You know what I mean? So she talks about stuff like that. Just the number of 4-year-olds increased 76%. Like that's
that's
not a
insane to me.
yeah. The number of 3-year-olds increased by 95% or 94%. Sorry. Um,
And so let's look at this. Is over the past decade, there's been a rise in the
yeah.
number of children being coded as having attention issues and possibly attention deficit hyperactivity disorder (ADHD). So like there's an children being coded with that, right? So kind of like the over medication, over diagnosis that we were
Hmm.
talking about. Perhaps your child or someone is in his or her class is one of these children. According to a study published, blah, 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 an astonishing 2 million children in the United States were diagnosed with ADHD over an 8-year period. Why? Well, because there was a financial incentive to give Adderall. And for kids to neglect their kid, neglect
Yeah.
their, for
Well,
parents to,
and just the change of schooling,
yeah,
right? Now it's you have to sit down and listen and learn. I mean, not that that wasn't an aspect before. Like, yes, you had to be respectful, sit down, close your mouth, and listen and learn. But there's a lot of physicality that's taken out of the school systems now, right? How long is a recess now? Like half an hour? How the heck are you supposed to have? How do you expect a child, not just a boy, but a child, to sit down for 5.5 hours and just listen to somebody talk to them
yeah.
and just read to them? Or I mean, I know there's more to it than that. I come from a family of educators, so I know they do more than that. But
But that's the point, right? Like they expect them to be able to
mhm,
basically sit on their hands and pay attention
yeah,
and not want to rough and tumble, right? And boys are not girls. Girls can sit
mhm,
with more attention, or at least
yeah,
more gently, kindly, and they're not going to be like, ah, you
right,
want to throw something.
yeah. What are the job fields that men dominate? Not because of
Sexism.
sexism or patriarchy, but like men are in the fields of physical hard labor. They dominate those fields. Why? Because they need that kind of movement. They need that kind of, dare I say, machismo of accomplishing physical labor, right? Like it's a testosterone boost, it's a mental boost when you accomplish that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So a boy just sitting in school, not doing anything, like what do you expect is going to happen, right? My dad was a shop teacher, okay? And so his classes, auto mechanics, CAD drawing, he even had a aviation class. We were building an airplane,
Yeah.
working on engine, like all that kind of stuff, right? Magnetic levitation, all this cool engineering, mechanical work. Like as you would imagine, those classes were dominated by guys, right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't because the guidance counselor was saying we're only going to have guys in these classes. It was just guys were signing up for those, and girls weren't. There were some girls, right? But 95% were probably dudes. Like because
Right.
that's the physical labor, the hands-on movement to do stuff, right?
And what's funny is like, uh, we also need the physical exercise to get about and take care of our bodies for health reasons. Like it says here, when
Yeah.
children don't experience enough movement opportunities to challenge and strengthen their bones, the load bearing capacity of these bones decreases significantly.
Yep.
This reduction leads to a breakdown and release of calcium, which is reabsorbed by the body, leaving bones more brittle and weak. Right,
Yep.
and
So those safer playgrounds we were talking about, it's in here somewhere. I can't remember. Yeah, there you go, right there, right where your cursor is. One study found a 150% increase in the number of PE related injuries for elementary, middle, and high school students in the United States between 1997 and 2007. So in over a decade, it more than doubled just the number of PE related
that's
injuries. Probably because,
insane.
right? And then the paragraph above that, 37% increase in dance related injuries for children. Dancing? What?
Yeah,
What, like roll your ankle and like break your ankle or something? Like
that's
it's
so
it's
sad.
insane, man. Like
Yeah, well, it's like the amount of time children spend in unstructured play has decreased 50%. They need unstructured play. They need to be able to go out and do whatever their mind is in their mind they want to
yep.
do. Children are
Yeah.
spending more time than ever before in front of electronic screens.
And not
Um,
just that, but like so my my wife and I, we really don't like this trend that's happened probably over the last ever since we started having kids, 12 years ago. There was just this whole thing of a play date where you don't just drop the kid off. Like the mother stays and visits with the other mother, but like they're almost playing with the child at the same time instead of just like, yeah, we can go over, and then the kids just run off and play. Like that's not what was happening. She would go over, and the kids, like, where's that paragraph? It just said like the kids, they would come back after a few minutes and be like, there's nothing
I'm
to do.
bored. There's nothing to
It's like,
do.
oh my gosh, go outside and play. Go do something. Like, and whenever my kids tell me this, like, oh, there's nothing to do. I'm so bored. I was like, well, good thing you have all that crap in your room you can play with. So go figure it out, right?
Exactly, or to be able to self entertain, right? Really
Yeah,
develop
man.
character.
Like, I know you guys have imaginations because you do stuff all the time. Go use it.
Yeah, like it says here, have you sent your children out to play only to have them return minutes later saying there's nothing to
hmm
do out there? I'm bored.
Yeah.
Studies indicate that children's play habits have changed drastically in the past few decades. So that's because they don't have enough unstructured playtime. So they don't know what to do with unstructured playtime. They have to be
Yeah.
entertained as opposed to proactively doing something for yourself, which says a lot about a lot of areas in your life. If you can learn how to do things for yourself, oh my gosh, you are less of a burden upon your relationships and your society, and you're more contributing.
Yeah.
Um, and going down here, right, it says uh, severe head injuries, falls, and deaths at playgrounds remain extremely rare, regardless of how much safety proofing is implemented. So, like people, they always guise it in their happy or their helpful things in terms of we're going to make it safer for people, right? It's just like gun laws. It's like we're going to make it safer for people. Get rid of the guns. And what this study is saying is if they were already decently safe, and you adding all these things didn't actually change the stats,
hmm
right? But in the end, you made everyone
Yeah.
worse by doing so.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
It's
crazy, man.
this is when children are given the opportunity to take risks and even experience the sensation of falling. They learn how to make necessary motor adaptations over time, such as shifting body weight on a bicycle to keep from falling, reaching
Yeah.
out in the hand to protect the face during the fall. Adults can't teach children how to make these necessary adaptations. Children have to learn these skills through real life experiences. They fall
Say
every now and then.
what?
They
They
make
have to
mistakes.
actually live life to learn?
Exactly. Limiting children's exposure to risk and constantly trying to keep them from falling can impede their physical development. So, what it's trying to say basically is parents may think that being extra cautious and protective of their children is worth fewer injuries. The irony is that our close attention to safety has not made a difference in the number of children getting hurt, right? So, we can think we're doing something good and keeping them safe. In the end, we're actually hurting them and we're
Well,
making their
so
lives worse.
that paragraph you were just reading, the
Yeah.
next sentence, what does the next sentence say? Where'd it go?
Um, In fact, according to the National Electronic Injury Surveillance System, which monitors hospital visits and the frequency of emergency room visits due to playground injuries, there has been a steady increase in the number of playground injuries since the early 1980s, when the most of the equipment renovation started. So when most of the dangerous stuff was
Mhm.
starting getting removed, injuries were increasing. That's insane. Like the
Yeah.
exact opposite.
Well, read those numbers right there. In 1980, the number of visits resulting from playground accidents was 156,000. By 2013, the number had jumped to 271,475.
Oh my
And
gosh,
that's still 10 years ago. I can
dude.
only imagine what it
What is
is
that?
now.
What is that? An 80% increase? That's huge. That's a
I mean,
giant
yeah,
jump.
it's almost double. Yeah.
It almost doubled. Oh my gosh.
So crazy, man.
Okay,
So these
so
these super safe playgrounds, and I mean, yes, I can definitely understand where they're coming from and wanting to make safe playgrounds and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, oh man, I don't know. It drives me nuts to just see how soft it really is. But so here's a thought though. Maybe the playgrounds are safer, but it's more about the kids aren't on the playground as much, and when they are in the playgrounds, they're coddled. You know what I mean?
well, when the playground exists in as a safer, quote unquote, safer layout,
Yeah.
the entire play experience is coddled, and that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Coddling your children throughout life produces so what is it strong men make
Oh,
good
yeah.
times make weak men make hard times,
Yeah.
and so weak men come from over coddling, right? Whether it's your
Oh,
prosperity
sure. Yeah.
coddles you, your playgrounds
Masturbation
coddle
and
you.
all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's like you need you need to have risk. Like boys and
Yeah.
girls need risk, but especially men, because men are supposed to be the breadwinners, right? That's what they're supposed to go out and do, right? It's going to be very, very rare circumstances when the wife is the breadwinner, for like full time for forever, right?
Hmm.
Like that's a very rare situation where it's like, oh, I am a stay at home dad. That's just my life because my wife wanted to be
Yeah.
the doctor. Okay, but generally speaking, the men have to be the risk takers. They have to learn how to take risk and go in there and I mean, every single day you go to work, you're risking time away from memories from your home. Like hopefully your home stays safe, right?
Hmm.
You risk your performance. Are you going to keep your job, right? Are you going to do other things to increase income to create better security? There's so
Yeah.
much that goes into all this, and I think just having a playground that coddles you means that you're likely going to have a school system and parents that coddle you as well. And coddling makes you soft. And the world is a hard place. We don't need soft individuals. We need men that are tough,
Yeah.
right? Tough and
Yeah.
tender. That's really what we're looking for. They're tender because they
Yeah.
are followers of Jesus Christ. They're tough because they will go and do.
Hmm. They have that sense of duty to go and accomplish something,
Exactly.
and they're not being told, "No, that's toxic," like everyone else is today, right? All these beta males that are, they wear their rolled up capris or whatever, whatever
Yeah.
kind of weird outfits I see nowadays. I mean, whatever. If you go and do masculine stuff and you're wearing those clothes, whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's some
Well,
judgmental of me, but
I have to say this about style, and let's end it after this terrible note I'm about to leave us with. And that is, um, there really is styles do often, not always, but often reflect character and the type of individual you are, right? If you are rough and tumble, you're going to dress what you expect rough and tumble people to dress as. What we live in today is people love promulgated by our culture nowadays. They love the confusion culture, which is dress the opposite of what you actually are, because people can never figure out whether we're talking about like I'm some sort of gender. Can you figure out which one I am? Right? Or it's like I'm actually a rough and tumble guy, but I like to wear man dresses or whatever it is, right? It's just like these. It's like just be consistent, be who you are, be consistent,
mm.
and be humble and be modest. Brian, last thoughts before we close.
Oh man, find your sense of duty. Find your. I don't know how to say it, man. Put me on the spot like that. Come on,
Oh,
um, bro. Come on, dude. Uh, Try to be, for the fathers that are on here. Be the Helaman to the stripling warriors. Be the You know,
That's a really good way of putting it. Be the Helaman.
be that example of spiritualness, righteousness, and duty to your family, to work hard, and to support your wives in their nurturing of your children, or look for that woman that's like that, right?
Yeah.
And make sure that she supports you in your roles as a man. Don't don't let don't let either one, overcome the other. Like, you have to be doing it together. That's what
Yeah.
makes a well-rounded human being. So,
And being the Helaman to your stripling warriors, to your sons, means
hmm
that you are going to allow them to take the risk. Helaman originally tried to prevent them from risking battle. In the end, it became necessary, and
hmm
then it turns out that they became pivotal in the war. They could not do it without these young men.
yeah,
You will
yeah,
prevent your children, your men, your boys from becoming pivotal in their communities and societies by preventing
definitely.
them from having risk.
Yep.
All right, so thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know if you thought we were wrong or what you agreed with. I'd love to hear about that. And we'll talk to you again later.